See, understand what Jesus is saying, right? I know somebody went home from the service last week. I had coffee with her and told her husband, "Oh my goodness, you should have heard what Jesus said. Like, you have to tear your eye out." Like, talk about a master of metaphor and allegory, right? So he's just saying, the way we choose to see the world, just about any situation, will either lead to our healing and our wholeness and the reparation of the planet, or our destruction, both of ourselves, our relationship, the planet. We know that. So that's what Jesus said. So I've told you the first day I walked into my first theology class at McGill University with Doug Hall. I've told you the two things he said that I thought were the most important, but he actually said a third thing that is most important. So let me just remind you of what the two things are, because I think they're all kind of connected. The first thing he said was, the first thing he said was, I want you to repeat this back to me, because I've only told you 100 times this story. The most important theological question is, well, there will be a test now. What time is it? That is the most important theological question. What time is it? So if we really want to wrestle with matters of life and death, we need to know what time it is. And I'm not sure that our tradition or the churches within our wider circles know what time it is. It's 2017. And what we know in 2017 is that if we don't start, and it may already be too late, to look at the planet, which is our home, differently, it's over. So, what time is it? That's the first thing. Number two is, if this tradition is to have a life and any meaning whatsoever, if it has any good news to share, or maybe even bad news, that is nevertheless true, it has to be like an Anfuchtungspunkt. It's the only German word I know. It's the buttonhole, all right? So if what we're talking about in here has nothing to do with what anyone's talking about out there, why would we think we have anything to say? I'm just telling you what he said. The third thing he said was, keep in mind I walked into his classroom in January of 1987. And he said, the church is not producing any decent theology these days and has produced very little good theology, in fact, in this century. If you want good theology, artists, poets, musicians. So if we want to have a conversation about, I really like this picture here. Just let me go back to it if I can find it. Like if we really want to see the world from another perspective and not just the perspective of another human being, we're so anthropocentric on the planet, and this religion has been so anthropocentric. We're going to have to put on a different set of glasses, and for some reason, theologians, guilty as charged, keep thinking they can see something by standing in the same place or using the same language. And you really need to learn to stand in a different place, put on a different set of glasses, and use an entirely different language. So, I'm going to read to you this morning I would add to Doug Hall's, he said that the best theologians are poets and songwriters and artists. I think we need to add scientists to that. That's why it's important to know what time it was, right? Like in 2017, if we aren't getting some of our theology from scientists, well, we're not telling one another the truth. So this is an article that I had not been up till all hours partying with the boys on Friday night. I would have had the name typed at the top of the page, but I will tell you that the article I'm going to read from is from The Guardian. All right? And the topic has to do with the potential extinction of the universe of insects that inhabit this planet and did long before we did. So I just found it so powerful. I will email you the link later today. When you ask people who work in invertebrate taxonomy why they have devoted their lives to a particular type of insect, snail, or clam, the word you hear most often is beautiful. Their eyes light up in front of their chosen genus or subclass. The occupants of a case full of slightly iridescent, mostly black beetles will be described as rather huge and incredibly beautiful. Huge is relative, too. They are the size of the final joint of a little finger. Surrounded by jars full of the tiny sea slugs, they will gush about their beauty and the glorious variety of their color, shape, and behavior. Amy Burkhoff, a professor of tropical ecology at City College of New York, who works on wood-boring beetles, came to entomology from a background in art and chose her new field in part because there's nothing more amazing than looking at insects. Even the ant specialists, generally a pretty hard-nosed bunch, will trade Latin names on rare ants with the affection you usually hear reserved for old friends. It's easy to care about the cute and cuddlies. Soon we'll be living on a planet that has lost its last mountain gorilla, its last leatherback turtle, a world without tigers or polar bears. What a sad place that will be. But to think about the coming invertebrate extinctions is to confront a different dimension of loss. So much will vanish before we even knew it was there, before we even had begun to understand it. Species aren't just names or point on an evolutionary tree or abstract sequences of DNA. They encode countless millennia of complex interactions between plant and animal, soil and air. Each species carries with it behaviors we have only begun to witness, chemical tricks honed over 1 million generations, whole worlds of mimicry and violence, maternal care and carnal exuberance. To know that all of this will disappear is like watching a library burn without being able to pick up a single book. Our role in this destruction is a kind of vandalism against their history and ours as well. Take Strummy genus Reliquia, one of the ants I heard discussed with such warmth at the California Academy of Sciences. Strummy genus is a predator, a native of the undergrowth, and very rare. It was first discovered in 1986 by Phil Ward of the University of California. He spotted this incredible rare species on a 2-hectare patch of woods a few miles from his office. It has never been seen anywhere else. We think there's a reason for this. California rivers were once flanked by giant forests of hardy, flood-resistant evergreen oaks. Geologists think these riverine forests were a feature of the landscape for at least 20 million years. Accounts from early settlers and explorers give an idea of why they might have been like. They write of flocks of geese blackening the sky, salmon choking the streams, and grizzly bears gathering under the oaks to feed on acorns in troops of 100 or more. Today, except for a few scattered acres, like the one Ward found in Yolo County, these forests are gone. They were chopped down long ago for firewood and plowed under to make way for tomato farms and almond orchards. The salmon, the geese, and the grizzlies have all gone too. Only the ant remains. Only it remembers.